This candidates forum is being brought to you by A. Legos, Souls to the Polls, Milwaukee Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Mothers Against Gun Violence, Souls, Wisconsin African American Tobacco Prevention Network, and Wisconsin Tobacco Prevention and Poverty Network. My name, by the way, is Joanne Williams. I'll be your moderator tonight, and we thank you all for spending some time on this snowy night to learn about the candidates for the 10th District for the Milwaukee County Board. Now, a little background about the election and what you have to do as a voter. The spring election will be held on February 16th. The polls are open from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. You need proper documentation, and you may still register and vote at the polls. You can vote in person, and you can get an absentee ballot at City Hall, Milwaukee City Hall, from 8 a.m. to 4:30. That started on February 2nd. It will run through February 12th. That's when you can pick up your absentee ballot. You may not pick up ballots the weekend of the 6th and 7th of February, which is this coming weekend. The last date to request an absentee ballot is February 11th. You have to show a photo ID in order to vote. Information on voting, if you want to find out more about the process, you can go to vote411.org or myvote.wi.gov. So please visit either of those websites if you want to find out more about voting and about this election. As I said, the spring election is February 16th, and the general election will be on April 6th. So we're going to have a lot of questions this evening, and hopefully the candidates will be prepared to answer them all. I'm going to introduce you now to the 5 candidates who have filed to run for Milwaukee County Supervisor District number 10. We have Aaliyah Anderson. You can probably see the names, but there you are, wave. We have Priscilla E. Coggs Jones. Thank you. We have Danielle McClendon. Where's Danielle? We have James Ferguson. There's James. And we have Darren Madison. We have 3 women and 2 men. I like those odds. The 10th district covers the following zip codes: 53202, 53205, 53206, 53208, 53209, and 53233. It's a pretty big district, runs from north to south, east to west. It almost goes to the lake on the east side. It goes off to, I think, 35th Street on the west, goes down to Wisconsin Avenue on the south, and up beyond Capitol Drive on the north.
Up to the peak is Congress.
Congress, that's right.
It's at Congress.
Yep, that's the northern boundary. So it's a pretty big area. It's a funny shaped area, though, as are most of the county districts. But that's the discussion for another night. So we're going to begin with 60-second opening statements from each candidate, followed by the questions. You will each get 90 seconds to answer the questions. And then at the end, you'll get 60 seconds each to make a closing remark. We have quite a few questions to ask. I think you know what some of the questions are, but not necessarily all of them, because we're asking questions that I want to ask. So let's begin with your opening statements, and we're going to go alphabetically. Later on, we're going to reverse the alphabet. And I may just randomly start in the middle. So let's start with Aaliyah Anderson. Please introduce yourself for 60 seconds.
Good evening, Milwaukee. It is an honor to be running to represent a city and a district that has had such a vital effect on my upbringing. Milwaukee is home, and our home needs to be cleaned up. We have some racial disparities that need to be wiped clean. We have some historical landmarks that need to be dusted off the shelf and preserved. We have some stinky segregation that has been plaguing our house and that needs to be tossed out for good. With a list of collective responsibilities, I'm here and I'm willing to do the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Next up is Priscilla Coggs Jones.
Good evening. And first and foremost, I want to give honor to God, who's head of my life. Thank you, Alego, for hosting this event, and Miss Williams as well. As I was introduced, my name is Priscilla Coggs Jones, and I am a candidate for the 10th District of County Supervisor. And I do believe strongly that Milwaukee County Services is the safety net for Milwaukee County residents. So if I become elected, I would love to ensure that we push our bus transportation out to where the good paying jobs are. I do believe that we need to be concerned about coronavirus, the vaccinations, to be brought into the inner city for testing. And most importantly, we have 5 jewels in our district, the 5 parks, bring in urban agriculture to help with food insecurity, to utilize the resources that we have right within with 4-H, UW Extension, and so forth. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Almost 60 seconds on the dot. Let's go to James Ferguson. You're next.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd just like to thank you, Miss Joanne, and thank you for the sponsors of this event. I thank all of the voters and the viewers that are in the viewing gallery. As you just mentioned, my name is James Ferguson. First and foremost, I'm a son of God. I serve him. I love him. He's the head of my life. And I'm a son of the 10th District. I was born and raised in the 10th District on the corner of 26th and Walnut. I was blessed with an incredible family, many of whom are in the audience, in the viewer audience listening in tonight. I want to give a special commendation to my dad. Tonight actually marks the anniversary of his cancer diagnosis. My father, the late Johnny Ferguson, anybody who knows me knows that he was, and he will always be my greatest inspiration to serve. My earliest days of service started following him around his office at Lisbon Avenue Neighborhood Development, and I got bit.
All right. All right. Thank you. Let's see who's next. I think we have Danielle McClendon next.
I'm okay to go.
Go ahead. I took you out of order, but go ahead.
Okay. So where do I start? I'm a mother, a grandmother, raised 5 kids safely in 53206. A product of federal and union workers. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to garner that access to resources from them due to drugs and gun violence. So I'm a gun violence victim. I worked for the youngest legislator in the state who had passed bills into law. I've worked with people, policy, and politics for over 15 years. I've worked on projects going around the states about gun violence, taking youth. So I believe that we need to reserve and utilize our greatest assets, which is our humans.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll get back to that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then Darren Madison, you're up.
Hi, Darren Madison here, and I'm running to be the next 10th District County Supervisor because I know that change is real, or change isn't real, right? Until the most marginalized groups of folks are being acknowledged as it relates to the solutions. I've been fighting for this community since I've been 14 through the work I've been doing as it relates to the environment, working for good candidates to change the face of our government, in my work to close youth prisons in favor of age-appropriate community-based alternatives. I will be your voice to address the immediate needs as well as creative solutions for long-term problems. Right now, we have to beat COVID. Too many people are losing their lives and their loved ones due to this pandemic, I will be a bold and unapologetic voice as it relates to emergency relief, and as it relates to what is needed for the people in this district. So I'm
All
asking
right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So you've met all 5 candidates. We're going to move on now to the question and answers segment. And I'm going to start with the question that I've asked every candidate that I've talked to in my whole career. And it's always the first question I ask them. And the question is, running for political office means you are asking the voters to hire you for a job. So this is your job interview. Why should I hire you for this job? Let's start with Priscilla. You have to unmute. There you go.
Thank you so much. Great question. Why should you hire me for the job? I do believe with my wealth of experience from my volunteer with beautification and cleanup, I definitely saw an urge and need of changing the way that we view the community. If we can change the way we view the community, we can change the minds of our community. So with that, I held numerous beautification and cleanups throughout the city. That's one. The other is with my work experience as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, and as a workshop facilitator currently. I deal with the age group of 18 to 48. And what I do is that I help those who are coming out of incarceration, those who maybe have had a setback in their professional career, or those who are just new to the entry job level. So with that, I teach them interviewing techniques. I teach them about soft skills and hard skills. We have the opportunity to spend a week together. And with that, we create resumes, we apply for jobs. And then on top of that, I am a basketball referee. And in that component, it's youth that I deal with on a daily basis. And one thing that I love most is that I have the opportunity to educate in a fun family environment, teaching them what is the do's and don'ts in basketball and the proper etiquettes and so forth. So I do believe.
So the proper etiquette for this is that your 90 seconds are up.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Let's see now. Let's move on to Danielle. Danielle, I'm going to go to you. And the question is, why should we hire you to be the 10th district supervisor?
Again, like I said, we don't utilize our resources to the abundance. We have a bunch of park spaces, buses, just vacant things that can be utilized. I want to continue the services that we're using, but I want to amplify them with working with the state to make sure that we get enough shared revenue to our communities, as well as making sure procurement opportunities, housing for sale is in all job centers. We need to make sure these entrepreneurs have access to that information. These are some of the things we haven't utilized. We need to rent out our fleets. We sell them. Anything that we have, we need to better manage our resources. So we have to use everything to squeeze as much as we can, and also work on make sure that 1% tax is applied to our communities so we can get some reprieve on all types of situations. So I want to say that I'm running because of my lived experiences, because of programs that the county works for to invest in humans, families in our community. You produce people like myself who've lived these experiences that the issues that have us all running for office currently. So I want to continue to be that voice in all spaces. And I want to bring everybody in when we're making a decision. If we're privatizing anything, if we're anything that we do, all stakeholders should be at the table. Businesses need people, people need businesses. We need one another. I just want to.
All right. Thank you very much. Darren, let's go to you next. The question is, why should I hire you as a 10th district supervisor?
So again, I've been doing this work since I was 14. I've been organizing in our community and working with the most vulnerable members of our community. I've been taking time to meet residents throughout this district and throughout this city for the past 10 years of my life and even longer. The reality is that we need bold leadership that can make progress towards our critical service changes that increase our neighborhood's access to programs for the most vulnerable people. I will speak boldly against policies that ignore racial disparities. I'm also an expert at collaborating. And again, I'm a bold leader. And I always tell you the truth at the end of the day. Transparency is the most critical piece as it relates to meeting the needs of the people who are most vulnerable. And I hear that on the doors every day.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go to James Ferguson. Why should I hire you? Why are you the best person that I should hire for this job?
I'm the best person for the job because, first of all, Supreme Moore left some size 19 shoes to fill in the 10th district. And I'm pretty sure of all the candidates that I got the biggest feet on the panel. So hire me. But also, I've been on the job for my entire career. I'm not moving to the 10th district so that I can run here. I'm not a political opportunist, nor a career politician. I've been on the ground in the trenches for my entire career, serving at organizations like Career Youth Development, like West Care, Wisconsin, like the Howard Fuller Foundation, where I've met people at their areas of need, and I've been very effective in doing that. So on day one, I'm not promising you anything that I haven't already spent my career doing. So hire me because I'm the one you can look at my track record and see that this isn't just an opportunity that I want to bounce on. I'm not some nomad moving around trying to, win a political seat. I've been doing this work my entire career.
Thank you very much. Aaliyah Anderson, why should we hire you?
The 10th district should hire me as county supervisor because I am your neighbor. I have been in the 10th district my entire life. In my early adulthood, I created an organization called You Can Do It. That was just tutoring urban youth with local college students, and we all just gathered together to tutor and just to teach the value of education, pass it down to other youth. I also do social campaigning with educating the community on the facts of gun violence and just putting those ads out and letting them know like it needs to stop. I am one person, I'm relatable. You'll see me in the local grocery stores, you'll see me in the churches, you'll see me outside playing cans with the kids. I am that. This community is my home, and I plan to do the groundwork for this community. You should hire me because I know what this community needs. I know this community needs someone that can trust. I know this community needs someone that can speak truth to power and not be scared, not be timid about it. Say what's real and say what needs to be done, and also be willing to do it too.
All right, thank you all very much. That's the first question. The next question I want to pose to you, and I want you to keep this to one issue. What's the most important issue that you see that needs addressing in the 10th district? Let's begin with Priscilla.
Thank you. I do believe one of the issues that needs to be addressed, and I've heard this from the front end and the back end as a recruiter and as a job developer, is that there are not enough bus routes that are pushing the transportation out to where the good paying jobs are. I've dealt with a number of applicants who have the qualifications, who have the education, but just doesn't have the transportation to get to the jobs. So I do believe that extending those bus routes out to where those good paying jobs are is a huge concern, not only just for the residents of the 10th district, but just for Milwaukee County, period, as well as for Milwaukee County transit bus drivers too.
Thank you. Danielle, what do you think is the one important issue that's facing the 10th district, the biggest?
Thank you. No one wakes up and say, I want to be a deadbeat, I want to be poor, or no kid never said they didn't want to be educated. So I feel as if we need to work on economics in all aspects. Like I mentioned before, we do a lot with job retention and sending bus routes out. A lot of times the climate in those environments a lot of times end us back in our community. So what we have to do is continue to use the assets that we have, the existing strengths and resources, which are people. We have them locked in facilities. We have them volunteering when they owe for a ticket or owe for child support. We should be able to do some bartering systems. We have churches who can collaborate and people who can help purchase and activate some of these spaces that we're not utilizing. We're already in deficit, structural and budget wise. We have to look at other ways besides the one, taxing, that's in a way, but we have so many things, but economics is one, and that's bringing the jobs. That's bringing entrepreneurship in that job center, anywhere that people are marginalized or suffering. It needs to be access to procurement, access to encouraging speakers. Those people need to be in those spaces. Social workers should be in the community. Caseworkers spend money on those buildings. The work is in our communities. We can't make decisions in one day on anyone. So we have to better utilize the people for whatever our needs would be. People want to belong. People want to be part of a team. So
all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. James Ferguson, what's the one issue that really is important for the 10th district?
Employment and training opportunities. And I say that because we're all aware that COVID has dealt a mighty blow, not just to the people in the 10th district, but across our city, across our county, across our state, and across our nation. And so COVID has laid so many people off and rendered them unable to provide for their families and to meet their bills and obligations and things of that nature. And so we have to prepare people for a new economy that's coming in post-COVID. So training opportunity is going to be so important to people. And then making sure that they have access to the resources that they need to be able to support themselves and their families. I am somebody who, over my career, I've been a job creator. I've created jobs that employ people and allowed for them to provide for their families, to pay their bills, to send their kids to college. In addition, I have been a champion of training and opportunities that lead to industry recognized career credentials. That's what we need more of. And again, I'm not a candidate who's telling you what I'm going to do in the future when I get the job. I'm telling you what I've been doing my entire time in the community.
All right, thank you very much. Aaliyah Anderson, what's your answer to the one issue that the 10th district really needs to address?
The biggest issue that I've been experiencing and as knocking on doors and talking to the community is the community's trust within the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department. Our trust with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department is low. And that's the honest factor. Even talking on Brady, which may seem like an area that may have a trust for Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department, they don't. I think that the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department can receive better training, like implicit bias training, and that can be done in-house by the Office of African American Affairs. I believe that we need to go and look at these policies and tactics of how the police choose to police the society. I think our community just needs to be able to trust that our police can protect and serve us.
Thank you. Mr. Madison, what's your one pressing issue for the 10th district?
So there's a lot of things that we need to work on in terms of building, a series of relationships and policies that can help our people. But the reality is that we're still in COVID, right? And COVID response in the form of emergency rental housing, rental assistance, and utility assistance is the immediate needs of folks right now. We need to prevent folks from losing their homes and electricity. That's my #1 priority. This crisis is preceded by decades of housing inequities, but what we do here and now is the difference between life and death tonight.
Thank you. Let's move on to another question. I would like to know about communication that you think is valuable between county board supervisors and their constituents? And what sort of methods of communication would you like to use to keep in touch with the people who voted for you? Let's start with Danielle.
I know I've mentioned before in several conversations that because of COVID and because we are tested with the best technology we've ever had, so it's almost like those systems should have went right into effect. We've had all of this information, all of this technology. So at this time, if we're at the greatest time, the greatest information, and we still fail, we need to continue to utilize text messages, phone calls, mail, knock on the door, check on your neighbor, information at the store, information at unconventional places. It needs to be everywhere. We need to make sure that spaces will, as much as you have licensing, you have to display that you're licensed. It should be all your representatives and how to get in contact with these individuals. We shouldn't be hiding. I don't want to say we're hiding, but we should make sure they have access to your boss. I have access to who works for you. You're our boss, and you need to get in contact with us. So the only thing I can say, we need to do everything possible. If we have to use a string and a can at this point, we need to make sure, in a pigeon and a paper, we need to make sure everyone can get information regardless of who you are. So in apartments, just everywhere. And it's very expensive, but again, there's people who are willing to put in the work. They're just looking for an opportunity to be a part of something.
All right.
And they owe.
Thank you. Priscilla Cogs-Jones, what about communication? How should we keep in touch with each other so we can move forward?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I do believe that transparency is probably the best and one of the only ways to communicate. But I mean, it's 2021 now, right? So we have technology at our fingertips. So there are a number of different ways to communicate with our constituents and even just Milwaukee County, period. On our Milwaukee County bus, we can advertise whatever resources that Milwaukee County offers right within our hub of what we have. And if that's pertaining to energy assistant, housing assistant, food share, job trainings, and so forth, we have the number one tool that drives up and down our streets constantly to where information can be relayed. There is no reason why citizens in Milwaukee County is not being heard when it comes to unemployment issues. Too much technology are at our fingertips where people should know that if their status is impending, if their funds have been exhausted, or if they're not getting funds anymore. The residents need to know. And so I do believe that with doing doors, making phone calls, newsletters, and so forth, that is some of the ways that you can keep in touch with residents. We can do billboards, we can do radio advertisement, and so forth. We have podcasts, YouTube, the whole shebang. So,
all right. Thank you. Aaliyah, what do you think? Communication.
Conversation rules the nation. We got to talk to these people. I'm going to give a quote to a constituent in my district. When I knocked on his door, he said, "What you want?" I said, "I'm Aaliyah Anderson. I want to run for Milwaukee County Supervisor of District 10 because I believe in the change of this neighborhood." He said, "Y'all just gonna knock on the doors, get my nomination signature, and never come back." Nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to be at these local community events as COVID allows us to, even if it's Zoom, even if it's the block cleanup. We're going to keep our faces shown in this community. We're going to let our community know about the issues in their community and let them know what they can do on any level of stature, of any level of class, what they can do to help as well. We're going to keep them informed on employment opportunities, on healthcare opportunities. We're going to just keep them informed in the grocery stores, in the churches, on the buses, signs on the streets. If we got to go back door to door, that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Darren Madison, what do you think? Communication is key to almost every relationship. What do you think? How do you think it applies to being on the county board?
Yeah. I'll start by saying this. My direct phone number is 366-5778. So many folks are so removed from the people that they're serving. I show up every day, whether it's rain, sleet, snow, and I'm knocking doors, engaging with folks. Relational organizing is the foundation of building strong relationships. If folks have issues, I will be there to show up. I'm a phone call away. And like Aaliyah was saying, we do need to show up year round to be engaging with voters, being engaged with residents and so on. Because if we don't, we lose their trust. We lose transparency, especially as it relates to the issues that they're dealing with. There's residents who have been buried in their homes for days under the snow and people aren't showing up for them. I've been doing wellness checkup calls with folks who I see they haven't shoveled their snow, just to make sure that they're alive, because folks in the neighborhood aren't always checking in on them because everybody's concerned about themselves.
All right, thank you. Thank you. James Ferguson, communication. What do you think?
Communication is key. Communication is king, as we've all already said. I agree with many of the things many of my colleagues have already stated. I would just add that we need a quasi multi-generational approach to communicating with our constituencies. So technology is great for us, you know, in my generation, millennials, things of that nature, but we can't leave out our seniors. We can't forget about them. They need information as well. They need to be able to access us as well. And I want to piggyback off of something that one of my colleagues stated about knocking on doors and people saying, you're just going to take my signature and you're never coming back. I too have heard that over and over and over again. And that's unacceptable. It's simply unacceptable. Knocking on doors shouldn't be something we do. It should be who we are. As true public servants, our constituents shouldn't have to chase us down. So to that end, I would make sure that right away that I put in regular means for communications. So if it's either virtual town halls or town halls that offer virtual attendance and also in-person attendance, you know, those things must be structured and systematic where they can count on you being there at this date and this time.
All right,
They
thank
should
you.
be able to
Thank you.
count on us.
Thank you. I want to ask you a question to follow up with what someone else said. And I want to ask each one of you, what does it really mean to serve? What does it mean to serve? Let's start with Danielle.
What it means to me to serve is basically meeting any individual, people and businesses, wherever they are. You can have a flat tire, you can need a speed bump, you can have crisis with your bureaucracies. I want to be in a position to say it's not about me. And everybody, I don't want to say everybody because but I want to say that I give out my cell phone number. I'm in the community. So knocking on the doors in this election is just an added asset to continue to create more neighbors involved in their community. So they know that it's people out here who want to put them into position to better their families first, because it starts at home. And that will better our community, which will better our world. But again, we just have to be selfless. I answered a call, and with the COVID-19 and the unemployment in Representative Haywood's office, we've answered hundreds, almost thousands of calls. I don't want to say we never dropped the ball, but we advocated in that office for individuals. We made sure anybody who reached out to us, we worked with whatever organizations and people we needed to answer the call. So it wasn't no big eyes, a little eyes in any position I've ever been in. So I just appreciate the opportunity so I can show my skills and ability to work with anyone who's willing to put in the work. Thank you.
Darren Madison, what does it mean to serve?
What it means to serve is showing up. Like Danielle was saying, it's showing up and in, you know, whatever way that looks like for the individual that you're having a conversation with. If it's food that they need, yo, let's get it. Let's get you the resources that you need, right? If it's housing inequities, right? Let me make a call down to the courthouse, right? If you're facing eviction, let me call down to the courthouse and get you legal help. And then it's also just being there. I can't stress enough what it means to show up for the people who need you the most. I got a call the other day about, you know, issues with Transit Plus, and them not responding effectively to folks who are to folks with disabilities who are hopping on the bus, right? Or being placed on the bus. And I've been doing research, calling every county supervisor I know to get her the support that she needs so she can feel like her young person is safe. And I will continue to show up for folks in the district.
All right. Priscilla Cogs Jones, what does it mean to serve?
For me, serving means to pretty much do the work that I've been doing thus far with Urban Grassroots. We have done beautification and cleanups in the inner city. We have seen that there is a need, that there is a way to kind of engage all ages, from youth to the elderly, to bring them out their homes, to hear that, oh, I'm so thankful that you decided to do this. For me, serving is providing expertise to the youth while I am a basketball referee, showing them the ins and outs, being extremely patient with them. For me, serving is doing the youth talent stage with the back to school festivals that I've done over 20 years. We're providing kids an outlet with their musical, whether it's playing an instrument, singing, acting, or what have you. To put those events together, it takes time, it takes energy and effort. So for me, serving is not just talking, but it's doing it as well. And that's what my record shows.
Thank you. Aaliyah Anderson, what does it mean to serve?
For me, when I think of serving, I think of the most humble job. The serving, usually, people don't usually know who you are. When I was doing doors, people don't usually know what a Milwaukee County Supervisor does. That was my job, to educate them. Serving means listening to people, advocating for their concerns, seeing that no problem is too small. No problem is too big enough to handle. If I can't solve your problem, I'm going to somebody who can. If you need a ride, I'm there for you. I can call somebody if I'm at work. Serving every day is a part of my daily activities as a teacher at Milwaukee College Prep. Just listening to 4-year-olds say, Miss Anderson, I need this, all day, every day. Serving is something that I am proud to do and eager to do when I wake up in the morning. Serving is a motivation for me. It gives me personal fulfillment to know that I'm helping my community, that I'm building character, that I'm enhancing my community in any way I can.
Thank you. James Ferguson, what does it mean to serve?
To serve, to me, means to put the interest of others ahead of your own private endearment or selfish motivations. Too many politicians serve their own interest at the expense of the people who put us in office. And they're saying that's enough. I don't believe the people of the 10th district are looking for another political opportunist or career politician. They're looking for someone who can put the needs of the families and the people of this community back at the forefront, and not my own fortune, not my own fame, not my notoriety. Listen, I don't care if anybody knows my name. What I care about are the people of this community and the families and their well-being. And that is what it means to serve. It means to show up, to roll your sleeves up, not caring about who's looking, not caring about who's watching, if the cameras are going. And that's what I've been spending my entire career doing, serving real families in the trenches at their point of need. And that's what we need more of. We don't need more politicians or more people who want to self-promote. We need people who are willing to genuinely serve.
All right, we have a question, and you've talked a little bit about it. Everyone has brought this up, but let's dig deeper into it. Let's talk about healthcare. The county deals with healthcare for the citizens. There are a lot of issues that we face, COVID-19 being the biggest one. We also have a problem with infant mortality in Milwaukee County. What do you think the county board and you as a supervisor on the county board should be doing to improve the health care of your constituents? Let's start with Darren Madison.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so the Aging and Disability Resource Centers are the county's point of contact for public health benefits. As more of those programs come back under the county's purview, I'm aware of the issues around access for the people of the 10th district, and knowing our demographics. So we need to deal with the risks of our essential workers during this pandemic, as well as continuing to invest more resources to meet the direct and equitable needs of the most vulnerable populations. And that will take the leverage, us leveraging state funds and federal grants to build a realistic continuum of care around folks. And I'm committed to making it happen and continuing to learn.
All right, Priscilla Cogs-Jones, healthcare. What can the county board do, and what could you as supervisor for the 10th district do to improve the healthcare and the services that we offer for the people in Milwaukee County?
So as I've been doing doors, some of the concerns that have been brought up to me is coronavirus and the testing and the vaccinations, which I do believe needs to be in our inner city, to where folks from the 53206, the 53205 zip code can take the transit bus to come and get tested, or even receive the vaccinations. I do believe that Alderman Stamper is putting forth, along with other community partners, is putting forth a mental health care community in the 10th district, which I feel is very vital to some of the endurance of what we have gone through with the pandemic, the racial disparities. And this isn't just talking with us as middle age and older, but we have to think about our youth and what they've gone through with the virtual schooling at home, not being able to have the outlets and the socializing with their friends. So we need to ensure that there is funding available. We need to ensure that those funds that do come down, that they're allocated properly. And I will promise you, Milwaukee, that I will be a voice to ensure that we get that.
Let's go to Danielle McClendon Williams, healthcare in Milwaukee County. What do you think?
Healthcare, I'm sorry?
What do you think can be done to improve the healthcare and the access for everyone, specifically the constituents in the 10th?
I believe, again, that we need to have all hands on deck approaches. There's people out there from food resources, when I say food resources, better ways to eat, better ways. I know if you eat healthier, it helps you get all sorts of health benefits. So we need all those nutritionists. We need all of those health food industries working with us to restore our communities back to where they were. We have to look at our conditions in our community. And it may seem a little brutal, but it's hard to take individuals away from their home and give them the therapy, and then you send them back into these environments. We have shrines everywhere of dead, RP, rest in peace. How can we continue to heal mentally, and we're steady watching these things go? If we leave home, we're probably in some violent situation. If we walk, we're constantly bombarded with it, and now we're in a pandemic. We're going to be forced to do a lot of things innovative to address the health mentally of people, and physically of people, and financially of people. So basically, again, you have to build those conditions in our community, because we can't just take them outside and then put them back in a condition. We're continued generational mental behavioral issues, it's just a continuous cycle. So we have to start within our communities and making sure we're utilizing all the resources, juice kitchens, healthy food kitchens, therapists, people who let them have access to all the information and let them choose. And we should be respectful to work with our residents who want to start those businesses and get that information to them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
James Ferguson, we're talking about health and the county board and how the county can address and improve the health of the constituents.
First of all, I think this is a critical conversation that needs to be had around healthcare. For one, we need a vision. The Bible, I'm a man of faith. The Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. So right now we have a very fragmented and anecdotal system for how we address the healthcare needs of our community. I believe that we need to bring our healthcare providers together with our community leaders, our health leaders, all together so that we can have a summit on what are the health needs in our community, first of all, and what's our vision moving forward. Because vision can drive us and it can organize our efforts instead of us being all over the place shooting at the hip. One of the things that I see as a major need is access to preventative care. Before people get sick to the point where they're dying or they need some, $800,000 procedure in order to sustain their lives, there are things that we can start educating people about right now at home so that they can live healthier, more fulfilling lives. And so I think preventative care, bringing it closer to home, and access to health education, bringing that closer and in the homes is going to be key for us. And finally, I believe, am I out of time?
You're out of time. Sorry.
Okay.
Let's move on to Aaliyah John Anderson. I'm sorry. Healthcare. What do you think the county should be doing? And as the 10th district supervisor, what do you think you would like to advocate?
With COVID-19, we realized that African Americans and elderly were the demographic that was most vulnerable during the COVID-19. We need to make sure we got limitless healthcare access. We got to make sure it's equitable. Insurance should not be so hard to get. We need to make sure our constituents have that, especially in response to a pandemic. In terms of mental health, again, it's so many crimes, so many deaths in response to gun violence. We need to make sure that our community has access to that. The proposed mental health place is supposed to be on 12th Street. We need to make sure our community knows that. We could partner up with healthcare people and make sure that our community just has access to all of these resources.
All right. Let's move on to something that most of you have sort of alluded to, but I want to find out what your thoughts are about dealing with this. Does working on the county board, if you were elected to represent the 10th district, does working on the county board mean you have to fight with the other county board supervisors or with everybody else? Is there always fighting involved? And how would you work at getting the things accomplished that you think are needed? Let's start with Priscilla Cox-Jones.
Great question. No, you do not have to fight with your colleagues to get things through. I do believe that there is a saying that that we can all agree to disagree. And I do believe to understand and comprehend one's message or asking of you is to utilize those soft skills. Those soft skills are so important when it comes to communication, listening, comprehension, and understanding. We all have an urge of wanting to ensure that funding comes into whatever district that we are representing. However, that may not always be the case. So with that being said, there are going to be some days where things may not go as planned, but then there are some days when things do go as planned. So I do believe when you have an outlook of wanting to work together as a whole, and at this time in need and where we're at in this place with the pandemic and the coronavirus and the racial disparities, we all need to work together to bring forth, because it's not just Black and Brown who are going through this pandemic. It's everybody across the board that's going through this pandemic. So I think us working together definitely brings greater solutions for Milwaukee County, period.
Danielle, what do you think? Is it a matter of fighting on the county board or some other method?
Well, considering that I've been at the state capitol, in some instances, it may look to the public, it may look to other individuals that it may be a fight, because a lot of times we don't have funding to go to those different districts. We all want things that our residents are telling us to have. But unfortunately, if we come to an agenda that we have to agree to disagree, because you can catch more bees with honey, I would definitely, and working in Representative Haywood's office and with many others, I always tell people, the lobbyists who come to the Capitol, if you have any concerns, reach out to those who oppose those decisions. Contact their residents, contact those businesses in their districts. I will help you with it and help and have gain some leverage from the people that vote for them. Sometimes they are coming to our office and they're preaching to the choir. We love the energy. We just need them to get that to places that makes a significant impact. So sometimes it may seem that I have to fight harder for the residents because that's what they want, and others may oppose it. But there's no permanent friends and no permanent enemies, but we all have to love unconditionally. They are all our residents.
Aaliyah Anderson, what about fighting? Is that all part of being on the county board?
I wouldn't call advocating for people fighting, but sometimes debating for what your community needs is necessary. But it's very important to know that the county board has 7 standing committees where county board supervisors work together on things like economic development, like finance, like health planning for individuals, and many other ones. So it's important for our community to know that just as I might advocate for you in terms of our district and our community and our city and what we need, I am also working with my colleagues. I will work with my colleagues to make sure that all of us have what we need. And I will make sure that all of us are the decisions are equitable on all of our behalf.
Thank you. Darren Madison, what about this question of fighting for what we want? Should we be fighting each other on the county board?
At the end of the day, the reality is we're all looking in the best interests of our constituency. And a huge portion of the time, it's just a difference in how we get to the solution. I say this on the doors all the time. It's about research-based policy, right? That's how we get to any solution that we're looking for. I've been doing work with Youth Justice Milwaukee over the past 3 years as it relates to building a realistic continuum of care and ending youth incarceration in this state. We've gotten Republicans and Democrats to boldly pass a piece of legislation that was supposed to close Lincoln Hills. But it sadly didn't happen because COVID and other political layers. But we did get the county to say they're gonna bring back all the kids from Lincoln Hills and to prepare to build a realistic continuum of care, right? And that was through research, bringing in national practitioners and actually having one-on-one, relational organizing experiences with legislators. I have a bunch of relationships with the gambit of folks on the county board, and I will leverage those relationships to get them to learn and to work towards both solutions.
All right.
And
yeah, let's hear what James Ferguson has to say about fighting on the county board or with other county supervisors.
I told you guys that I am not a political opportunist or a career politician. I'm a lifelong resident of the 10th district, and I believe that the other members of our community are tired, quite frankly, of all the kabuki theater and fighting that they see in our political arenas. It's got to stop. It's time to stop. And that's the reason we can't get very much done or accomplished. We need people to come to the county board who have a spirit of cooperation and unity, who understand the importance of being diplomatic, and who know how to build consensus around issues that are important to the community. One of the good things that I can say is that for over 20 years that I've been working in the trenches, I've worked across the aisles. I'm not going to start if you elect me. I've already been doing this for my entire career, building consensus around important issues, bringing Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, progressives all together to solve the issues that are important to the people we serve.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about an issue that was determined to be a health issue for Milwaukee County a couple of years ago, and that's racism. How do we identify it? And as a county supervisor, what do we do to either eliminate it or use our power to teach people that this is something that is toxic to our health? Aaliyah, let's start with you.
The first thing we need to do when dealing with racism is to call it out. Racism is uncomfortable, and to get through it, we got to make people uncomfortable. We need to make sure that all policies are not biased and equitable. We need to make sure that when decisions are being made, that they're made for everyone in mind. That's our most vulnerable citizens. The 10th district is a predominantly Black district. We need to make sure that the county is making decisions on all of our behalf. We need to make sure that to end racism and to clean it up, what we need to do is to make sure that officials have implicit bias training so that they are considering individuals like myself, considering individuals like constituents in the 10th district when making decisions.
Let's go to Priscilla Cogs-Jones. If racism is a health problem, how do we deal with it, and what can the county board do about it?
I do believe that diversity and inclusion is very important. Job creation is also important as well. And I do believe that when we bring those conversations and we're transparent about it and we're educating not only the youth, but the elders and middle-aged folks on how to handle situations when they are in those matters, what resources they can reach out to kind of help with getting through that. I dealt with the situation where I was being racially dismissed due to a job because of intimidation. And because I knew what resources I needed to tap into, I did that. And so I do believe that when you have diversity, inclusion, and job creation and resources at the fingertips of people and informing them on how to move through this, because we've been enduring this for years, this isn't something new. So we need to be more proactive. And how can we have preventative measures in to call people out on it right when it's done, and the correct professional way as well?
Thank you. James Ferguson, what about racism as a health issue, something that can not only stop us getting a job, but can actually make us sick?
Racism is a public health crisis, and it's one of the greatest public health crisis that we face, not just in our community or in our city, but across this country and even across our world. One of the things that I think is so important to us is to leverage the arts community, the artistic community, because music is a uniter. Music, art is a uniter, and we can leverage those creative forms of expression to really begin to preach messages that just talking, we've tried to talk things out for many, many years in this nation. And that hasn't really, that's helped us. We gotta continue the conversations. We gotta continue having them, but I think we can do a better job leveraging our arts community and creative expression in order to really preach the message, to reach the hearts and minds of people. We need more love, and we need more opportunities where people of different backgrounds can come together. And as a county supervisor, representing the 10th district in particular, the 10th district is one of the most diverse districts in the county. So this presents a real opportunity for leadership for us.
All right. Darren Madison, what about racism being a health issue? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee County was the first county in the nation to declare racism as a public health crisis, and pass a resolution for racial equity. However, this has to be about action and not words. And these are, 4 solid actions that can be done as the next 10th district county supervisor. Removing barriers from small community-based providers to get county contracts. Removing barriers to employment that are not relevant to the job. Rewriting job descriptions to require competency and community-based services. And reclassifying key roles to be more competitive and attractive for diverse bilingual candidates. Let's talk about the real solutions here, y'all. Let's do it.
Danielle McClendon-Williams, what are your thoughts about race as a health problem, as we have said it is in Milwaukee County? Racism, rather.
We have all the statistical data, the historical data, scholarly reviews. We have all the information we need. We need to make these actions, which are, these individuals are lacking in every aspect of their life. Health, education, that's what they say. So I believe that when we have employment services, it should be direct hire, HR director to employment. It should be that if these individuals are volunteering, they owe some form of child support. They owe some city taxes. It should be some way that we can leverage some of that. We're creating this strain. We need to also look at the transit. We have a non-robust transit system. That shows the racism that exists in our system that wouldn't allow it to go no further than Milwaukee, I would say. But those are where we need to take diversity and inclusion. That's where recognizing, instead of wearing it, Black Lives Matter, and moving people in position. So we need people who are in this arena to say, hey, I'm a HR director, find me 5 people. And we need to check the climate. How are you treated over there? How's your family? We need to stop saying wait 4 weeks when you need money today. We need to be able to create systems as far as that will look, because it's just not adding up with what we have been doing. We need to continue that and also think of innovative ways. We have the information. Let's work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What about housing in Milwaukee County? Because of COVID-19, evictions have become a crisis. They were a crisis in Milwaukee before that, but it's gotten worse. And housing is still a problem for a lot of people in Milwaukee County. How should we address the housing issues and problems that we have? Priscilla Cogs-Jones, what do you say?
In regards to the housing issues with evictions and so forth, there is funding that Milwaukee County Services has received for assisting those who may have been evicted or may have lapsed with paying their rent and so forth. I do believe that we need to look at the budget and ensure that we can allocate those funds to necessary departments that definitely keeps those Milwaukee County residents in a warm and safe shelter.
Thank you. James Ferguson, what about housing? We have problems in Milwaukee County with housing for everybody. What are the solutions?
Absolutely. For starters, I think we need to increase resources to landlords and also to tenants, so that tenants are not being put out on the streets for an inability to pay rent during a global pandemic. But on the same token, landowners, they shouldn't also be risking going to the poorhouse because they are not being paid rent. So we need an approach where it's multi-level approach to actually meeting the need. And we can't allow for either group of people to be overlooked. So what I would do is what I've done since I've been on the grounds and in the trenches. I'll bring people together. We need to hear from the people who are affected. We need to hear from tenants and from landlords. Far too often, politicians and lawmakers, they exist in the vacuum. They're not communicating with the people that are most affected. So we need to bring them in, give them a seat at the table so that we really understand the issues from a holistic perspective, not just from the perspective of what a politician in their office at the county is thinking, but we need to bring the people that are most affected to the table.
All right, thank you. Aaliyah Anderson, what about housing? It's a critical issue in Milwaukee and probably in the 10th district too.
First off, the county approved a housing specialist intervention today for $48,000. We need more. The jobs we need them posted in the 10th district so that our talented people can get educated, so they can get jobs, so they can have affordable housing. When I spoke to the county treasurer, he said that the 10th district is a very mobile district. People are moving constantly. We need to have great housing, great landlords. Check in with the community. Make sure the community can leave reviews on these landlords so that they can have housing to where they are staying in our community, so that they're not changing housing every 2 to 3 years. We can work with the treasurer to create payment plans on homes that are delinquent.
All right, Danielle McClendon Williams, what about housing in Milwaukee County? What can we do to improve it for everybody?
Well, we need to definitely continue to do what we've been doing and increasing access to housing, but unfortunately that's not working. If I just want to mention two things, we've sat on so many resources for so long. Again, we haven't utilized our spaces. If we're in the deficit, how is this not an asset? How are we not, we don't have not one church, not one human being who said, let me purchase this property. So how can we utilize these programs like Amani United with the Ezekiel neighborhood? They use one block, was funded to work with the residents within that community, but we need it at a rapid pace. We need the Department of Neighborhood Services. If you're giving them tickets, also give them information on if their porch is falling down, who can help you repair, what resources are out there, what's available to these individuals, as well as when it comes to housing first, Axe Housing and so many other communities, yes, they can work with the bank, but we need them to work with the bank because we owe tickets, we owe our credit. How do we work with the creditors? We haven't had anybody implement a plan to work with creditors to purchase homes to be able to get in there. They give us all the resources, but we could never access them because you either owe money, your credit is bad, and you're a low income individual. So once again, we have to address that first. Programs for that real, because over 50 years, the trickle down is not working. So we need to use other things.
Let's see what Darren Madison has to say about housing.
Like I said at the very beginning, right? Housing is one of our #1 priorities. COVID response in the form of emergency rental assistance and utility assistance. Utility assistance is, again, like others were saying, coming. And getting folks that information is critical. The other piece of the conversation is commonly tenants don't have a fighting chance when it comes to their evictions, right? Lawyers, landlords have lawyers. A lot of tenants can't afford legal support. So I'd support a piece of legislation called the right to counsel here in Milwaukee County, which would allow folks legal access to the support that they need so they have a fighting chance, right? That is the long-term strategy. And then we can talk about the other pieces, right? Meet their immediate needs, give them support, in that and navigating evictions, and then supporting them as it relates to, you know, their jobs and training and that continuum of support. Let's meet their immediate needs first, though.
Let's, I have a great many more questions, but I think it's time to open the floor to some of the people who are listening and give you some of the questions that are coming from them. Here's a question that says, as a current resident of the 10th district, what initiatives have you worked with that have had an impact on the community? I think we're looking for examples there. Let's start with Danielle.
Being a part of previously I was the Amani Ambassador Chair. So what we were doing with that program is going through each neighborhood, making sure an ambassador is on each neighborhood to disseminate information, to help your neighbor if they need the food, to just, if any situations, if we know that you've had been abused in your community, and we can look for those signs of things. I've also worked with COA, serving their families with the program Violence Around the World. That was many years ago. I've worked with getting residents issues resolved with aldermen in their districts, because a lot of times they don't even know who to contact. So I've continued to just say hey and serve the neighbors, anyone that I come across, and I always support. That's mainly been my selflessness, supporting everyone else's initiative, because I believe every human is an asset and could bring something to the table. So there's no stone that we need to leave unturned. We're in a state of an emergency. All hands are on deck at this point. So I've worked in many facets, and not just in this area.
Aaliyah Anderson, what initiatives can you point to that this 10th district resident would know about?
I'm sorry, you cut out on the last part. Can you repeat that?
I'm saying, what initiative can you point to that this resident of the 10th district will recognize that you've worked on?
In the 10th district, as I stated before, I created a free tutoring service for urban youth. That is teaching the youth to value education, to see people like themselves who grow up, go to college, teach them the importance of reading and math. I do 414, Streets on Safety. That's helping the community know no more guns, keep the streets on safety, put them down. Every day of my life, I help youth every day learn, educate, grow, be citizens in this neighborhood. I educate them on a history. I educate them on who they are, their character, help them build up their character. I think it's important in this district that they know more about the organizations here. I plan to educate them on more resources that they can join in on, more community orgs that they can join in on. My mom was a chair on Project Respect. I remember passing out zoo passes and dome passes so that urban youth can get to know these this community historical infrastructures.
Mr. Madison, what initiative can you point to that this resident of the 10th district will recognize?
Too many to count.
One.
I got you. So I've worked with, I launched the Eco Neighborhoods Initiative on behalf of the city of Milwaukee, which was actually my brainchild, which classified Lindsay Heights as the city's first eco neighborhood. That work led to a series of funding coming into the neighborhood for green infrastructure projects. It led to me being a part of, the grant writing process for the wellness center that's happening on 12th and North. The bioswales that are reducing flooding in the neighborhood. I used to work for David Bowen when he was our county supervisor, and he brought back music in Johnson Park. I was at the planning meetings for the redesign of Teef and Tyler Park. I can keep on going forever. I've been here, I'm still here, and I still do work with Urban Underground and teaching young people that they have a voice and how to use their voice to empower their communities.
Mr. Ferguson, James Ferguson, what's the initiative that you can point to that has had an impact on our community?
I would definitely point to our Power of Harambe Jobs partnership that I did. I championed while working at West Care, Wisconsin. That partnership took community, the private sector, and government, and we brought them all together to address an issue regarding juvenile delinquency. That golden partnership put 200 formerly juvenile justice involved youth to work and took them out of the juvenile justice system. I'm proud that I am not running off of anyone else's past accomplishments or anyone else's legacy in the community. I'm running off of things that I have been fortunate enough to lead and champion in my own tenure as a community servant. And so that's important to me. It's important to me that we bring people together, and this is what I've been able to do. Any problem that we face as a community, I believe when we bring people together, we are able to solve it. And I'm fortunate enough to have been one of those people to help bring those people together to meet real needs and to solve real problems.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Priscilla Coggs Jones. Sorry.
That's fine. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, so know that.
There are a lot of Coggses in government in Milwaukee. What about the question? What about what initiative can you point to that this 10th district resident will recognize that you were involved in?
Absolutely. Urban Grassroots I am the founder of this organization here. This is where I have taken my own dollars, my own time. I was not hired by any entity to put these events together. I have collaborated with many churches, many residents, many different organizations, House of Peace, Urban Underground, CYD, West Care, and just residents throughout the community, period. We all have the same vision, which is that there is enough trash and litter and filth on these grounds, and our children, our youth, our future are the ones who are out here playing constantly, who are seeing the filth and trash. So like I said, if we could change the way we view our community, we could change the minds of our community. That's just with Urban Grassroots. Now, to get to Back to School Festival, which I have been on that board for the last 20 years, where we have provided outlets for not only the residents right there within King Park, but surrounding areas. We've had folks come from the South Side, the West Side, to come and be a part of a magnificent event where we've given out book bags full of supplies to children. And we are supplying these tools, deciding on what grade they're in. So you're not just getting a general notebook and piece of pen. No, you are getting supplies needed for whatever grade level you are in. So
all right. Thank you. You pointed to some things that everybody might recognize. Let me go to another question from one of our viewers. I guess I can call them viewers. She wants to know about the numerous empty city-owned buildings and houses that we have in Milwaukee and in the county. They are usually traps for problems and sometimes illegal behavior. How can a county supervisor help in reducing this blight? Let's start with Aaliyah Anderson.
A county supervisor can help with the many abandoned buildings that we see in the 10th district by first letting the community know how much these buildings are for sale. They are a sale for cheap. I see Khalif Rainey posts almost every single week, houses and buildings that are for sale in liquidation, that are for sale for affordable prices. Get into these community orgs, presenting them with the opportunities to move their businesses and organizations into these areas so that they could be right neighboring with these communities.
All right, Danielle, what's your answer to that? What can we do with these buildings that are eyesores that should be put to some better use? What can a supervisor do?
I hate to be on repeat, but again, we allowed them to be so unmaintained for so many years with not having any relationships with any organizations that will maybe hold on to supplies, donate supplies, churches who want to help buy and pay some of their tithes and offerings to these individual places, using school individuals to rehab these places, but they're in such a dire need. Again, we need to have individuals working with the banks that will work with families in those communities who are the marginalized people to use those resources. Those are our talents. Entrepreneurs are looking for buildings. People want to know, how do we get in these buildings? We first and foremost, who and what happened that these individuals didn't have access to those buildings. So again, that information should be in job centers. It should be in places where individuals are seeking a better quality of life. And that's what I want to continue to do, working with our aldermen, because a lot of those buildings are city buildings, and I want to work with our state. How do we stop going in this? Let's work with our neighborhood, our churches, our businesses. How do you invest in your own community and using our most valuable resources, humans? We have them locked up, child support. They can help. We can create a barter system.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's go to James Ferguson. What about these buildings that we know are not in use right now? What can a county supervisor do to change that?
First of all, I think we need leadership and we need vision. I said earlier, and I'll say it again, when there is no vision, people perish. When there is no vision, that's how we see buildings that have been abandoned for decades on the city and county inventories. I mentioned my dad earlier, and I think it's a great opportunity to mention him again, because my dad had a vision to put low-income families into these houses by creating a wraparound program for them, because he understood that real estate could really help to lift families out of poverty in ways that other things cannot or will not. And so what I would do is I would carry that same passion and that same idea that he had for putting low-income families into properties. I will champion that. I will connect with my colleagues in city government and use what level of influence and leadership that I have to begin to help bringing an answer to these age-old problems that we've seen in our communities.
And finally, Elizabeth Cogs-Jones, what about these buildings? I did it again.
You did it again, but that's okay.
That's because I've been around for a while and I know I've got a lot of Cogses. What?
Yes, with the amount of empty buildings that we have in our district in Milwaukee County across the board, I believe that working with all levels of government will be able to truly utilize the importance of some of the necessary things what these buildings utilized with. And that was one, while I was doing doors, I spoke with a retired correction officer, and she had brought up a great idea, which is to utilize some of these buildings to bring those kids from Lincoln Hills to Milwaukee, to bring them closer to their families, which will then bridge the gap of the disconnect of them going through what they're going through, and the families will still have access to them. That's one. The other is that we have a lot of buildings that could be utilized by the homeless population that is truly severe here in Milwaukee County and in our parks as well. So I do believe with working with all levels of government to ensure that everybody have quality living arrangements, a roof over their head and shelter and so forth. So that is what I will be. I will be a voice for the homeless and for the voiceless.
Darren Madison, what about these buildings that we see not being used? Some of them all boarded up. What can a county supervisor do about that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a huge piece of this conversation is about intergovernmental relationships.
That's right.
Partnerships, right? I had a conversation a few days ago with Alderman Ballman, and he let me know that there hasn't been any strong intergovernmental relationships between every level of government in this state. as it relates to representing Milwaukee. I want to spend my time building these relationships and enhancing the relationships between the public sector and the nonprofit sector and philanthropy to ensure that we build a realistic continuum around the homeless population, around formerly incarcerated youth, around opportunity youth. We have 16,000 opportunity youth that are out of school and out of work between the ages of 16 to 24. And I advocate for them at the federal level all the time, right? And I do work with the National Youth Alliance for Boys and Men of Color to liberate millions of dollars to fund, grassroots efforts to advance the lives of boys and men of color. These are the relationships that I'm committed to leveraging to do the work, right? Like doing what was done in Philly and repurchasing abandoned buildings, repurchasing and repurposing abandoned buildings to serve the populations in need. But you have to pair that with programs.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I want to make sure that I give enough time for everybody to make their 60-second final pitch and give their closing remarks, so that then I will have some time to give my closing remarks. So we started at the beginning with the A's, and let's start with James Ferguson.
How did I know you were coming to me? Over the next couple of weeks, I'm speaking now to the constituents. Over the next couple of weeks, you will get phone calls, text messages, emails, direct mailings from candidates promising you a better life in exchange for your vote. As you make your decisions, I just wanted to make you aware of a couple of things that distinguish me from my colleagues. First and foremost, I'm the only candidate on the ballot that's a job creator. This is not something I'm promising to do in the future. It's something I've already done. Secondly, I'm the only candidate on the ballot who owns a home in the 10th district. If we're invested there, county supervisors should be invested in the districts that they're serving. And I'm invested. I'm not moving. I'm not a nomad. I haven't moved to this district so that I can run in this district. This is my home. This is where I live. This is where my family is, where I raise my family, and I will give everything that I have to serve this community effectively.
Danielle McClendon Williams, what are your closing thoughts?
Well, again, I just want to continue to amplify that because of the issues that we're trying to resolve in our community. I've been through every possible outlet that they provide for people when you lose your job, when you're homeless, when you experience domestic violence. So coming from a lived experience, sitting at a table, I can never tell a rich person how to drive a Bentley, nor can they tell me how to drive my 1999 Chevy, because they've never lived it. And a lot of times that's why we're stagnant at trying to make decisions in our community. And we need to continue to let everyone have a voice. Somebody mentioned before, how would you get individuals involved? I said, we don't never, when we're doing these visionings, we don't never say we need to open it up to people that will be released into our community. Matter of fact, how do we review these individuals in our penal system, in our anything corrections? How do we better utilize these resources? How do we take everything that the county owns and squeeze everything out of it to create wealth for our community? We're holding on to assets. We need to continue to work with individuals. Again, no one wakes up and say, I don't want to work. I don't want a job. No kid ever say they don't want to be educated. I just want to continue to be that voice because I've raised 5 children in 53206. I went back to school, was a dropout, homeless. And I use those systems that I'm trying to make sure they're secure for, so we can gain more talent, like individuals like myself, We're going to continue to waste. We need it. We need generational wealth built, not generational prisoners, not generational drug addicts, not generational drug dealers, not generational problem. So what we need to do is look at all of our spaces and squeeze them. They're educational. I took a picture behind the library, not 901 North 9th Street, because that has been sometimes a hurdle for our community. We need to start at the educational level. And how do we do it? Financial literacy is not one of them, because we've always lived with budgeting for school clothes, energies, and fixing our cars.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
I can see you're passionate about what you want to achieve. Aaliyah Anderson, what are your final thoughts to the people who are listening?
I first want to thank the constituents of the 10th district for listening to us tonight. I want to thank everybody who brought this together for a platform for us to connect to our district during a pandemic. I also wanted to tell you to stay safe, stay home, stay well, be well. We can work together to end this pandemic. When voting, remember that that is your tool. Local votes affect you so much. I'm only 25. I've talked to older people. I've listened to the history of Milwaukee. I know the current state, and I know where we can go in the future. I am optimistic about the change, and I know that your voice matters so much. Whoever you vote for, choose to vote. Choose to get out there. Take your neighbor with you. I'm going to leave you with my number, 414-485-5903, Anderson in the 10th.
Priscilla Coggs Jones, what are your closing remarks?
Thank you. Milwaukee shouldn't be the top 5 worst cities for African Americans to live in. Milwaukee County has human services that is able to address behavioral health services. We are the vital need of what keeps people going. And I promise you, Milwaukee, that I will continue to ensure that we have these resources. We need to make sure that we have the transportation to get the people to the jobs where the good paying work is at, okay? We need to ensure that we can bring in urban agriculture to our 5 Milwaukee County parks that is in the 10th district and help with food insecurity. We can bring farm fresh food right to your homes. So at the end of the day, I'm not just running for office. I'm running for the people. Vote Priscilla Coggs Jones, Tuesday, February 16th.
Darren Madison, you get the last word.
The best for last. So again, I'm coming to you to let you guys know that I have 14 years, not 14 years. I have years of experience advocating on behalf of you. I have relationships at every level of government to fight for what you need, and I can bring the resources to the table. I'm not here to talk about theories and visions. I'm here to talk about action. What can happen day one as it relates to what you need. So I'm asking for your vote February 16th, and then again in April, so that I can serve you.
All right, thank you. Thank you all very much. I want to say thank you to Aaliyah Anderson, Danielle McClendon Williams, Darren Madison, James Ferguson, and Priscilla Coggs Jones. Thank you for participating tonight, and thank you for deciding to run for office. We need more people who will step out and say, yes, I will serve. I also want to thank the people who helped produce tonight's conversation. A-Lego, Souls to the Polls, Milwaukee Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Mothers Against Gun Violence, Souls, Wisconsin African American Tobacco Prevention Network, and Wisconsin Tobacco Prevention and Poverty Network. Thank you all for helping us have this forum so that voters can hear from the people who are running for office. And to all the voters out there, we have approximately 44 people listening right now. If you each tell one other person, that's 88 people. And so it goes. It's time to vote. Because if you don't vote, you have nothing to say about the people who get elected. So thank you all very much for joining us tonight. I'm Joanne Williams. Stay safe, wear your mask, and be sure to vote on February 16th. Good night.